Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on Mastering Microsoft 365 Copilot, your guide to implementation and security. We're excited to have you join us for this informative session. Before we begin, let me introduce Covenant Global and our mission. Covenant Global specializes in cloud technology, cybersecurity, and compliance, aiming to be the foremost authority in these fields. As a Microsoft Gold partner, Covenant Global brings extensive expertise to help guide businesses through complexities of the digital age, and we hold 5 out of the 6 designations. The vision at Covenant Global is clear. It's to create a world where businesses can operate securely and efficiently, free from digital risks. Its purpose is to provide technology services and solutions tailored to meet specific needs of our clients. We at Covenant Global view ourselves as more than just a service provider. We act as a partner in the digital transformation journey of our clients. With innovative solutions like Fortify, CSP Manage, and Skydesk 365, Covenant Global supports businesses ensuring their operations are secure and streamlined. So before we start our webinar, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. This session will be recorded for those who couldn't attend live or wish to revisit this content later. We will send you an email with the recording. We are running Copilot during this presentation to demonstrate its capabilities in real time. I would encourage all of you to save your questions for the Q&A session at the end so that our presenters can cover all the material without interruption. There will be some polling during the webinar, and we encourage you to participate as it will help guide our discussion. And at the end, we will be announcing a winner of our Copilot Readiness Assessment, so stay tuned. So today, our experts, Mike Hughes and Mark Junker, who I will let them introduce themselves in just a few minutes, will guide us through the essential technical setups, data protection strategies, and licensing insights for Microsoft 365 Copilot. You'll learn about the basic requirements, data security measures, and licensing needing to secure Copilot implementation. So grab your coffee, sit back, and enjoy this informative session. We're looking forward to sharing valuable insights to help you transform your workplace with AI. Now let's get started.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Hughes. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Covenant, and my background is primarily in the enterprise space. For about 30 years, I was the head of IT for some company. My last company that I managed IT for was a large healthcare group with about 6 healthcare companies and 8,000 employees and 200 locations. In the last 6 years now, I've been with Covenant as a Director of Emerging Technologies, which means I got to go out and find all the fun stuff and help you all figure out how to put all this together as it relates to Microsoft and Copilot and cloud infrastructure and managed services and all those things that are related to IT. That's what I get to do on a daily basis. So a little bit more fun than the enterprise space, but I enjoy my work. Mark?
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for joining. Looking forward to sharing more information about Copilot. I've been in the industry in IT for 25 plus years now. Played a lot of different roles in engineering, architecture. In previous role before joining Covenant a little over a year ago was in a senior management capacity, managing a team of engineers and service desk people. So I have a lot of experience across the board, just implementing Windows-based environments. 365, Azure is my focus. Along with Mike, I really enjoy actually working with other companies and just help guiding them and giving direction and supporting them. Thank you.
So we're going to have a few polls that are going to occur. Melissa, did you want to comment on this one?
Yes. So our first question, and it's in the Q&A, is if you could please add your job title so that we can just better understand what it is that each of you do. And you can just add that either in the chat or which I think we all have access to. If you don't, then just please go ahead and just add it to the Q&A.
So from an agenda perspective today, I'm going to start off and I'm going to give you kind of a high-level introduction to Copilot and talk about how, what it is, how it works, how it's licensed, and some general adoption things. And then I'm going to go into a demo. After that demo, Mark is going to take over and he's going to talk about administrating reporting and some of the security features built into Microsoft 365, and talk about Copilot and Copilot security, because we get a lot of questions on Copilot security, and it's a lot simpler than you might think. But we'll talk about all those things and cover it. But if you have any questions as we go, put them in the Q&A, and or in the chat, and then we'll try to get to your questions towards the end of the conversation. All right, so here we go. Copilot. First thing you need to understand is it's a brand. Microsoft has a lot of Copilots. One of the very first ones was Copilot for GitHub. This is what I call the wheel of Copilot. Today, we're really going to be talking about, and I'll turn my little laser pointer on here, we're going to be talking about Copilot within Windows a little bit, operating systems, and modern work, or Microsoft 365. A lot of people don't know what I mean by modern work, but that's what it is. It's Microsoft 365. And we're also going to talk about the browser aspects of it and where the different areas that you can use Copilot at. Let's go to the next slide here. So Copilot for Microsoft 365 comes in two different flavors. There's kind of the personal version. If you use Copilot or Microsoft 365 for home, like I do for my family, where you license up to 5 people a year in your family for the home use, where you get the benefits of the desktop apps and OneDrive and all those things. There is Copilot for that, and we'll talk about how that works. And then there's also Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is designed for people who have a work account versus a home account. So that's these two different individual versus organization. The other thing I'll mention here is there's Copilot as a brand, and then there's Copilot as a search. Microsoft kind of used, and it's a little bit confusing, they took enterprise search or enterprise chat, which used to be $5, made it free and rebranded it as Copilot. So it's a little bit confusing, but it's more like a chat GPT experience when you think of Copilot chat. That's what that is. I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a little bit. But there's these two different licensing flavors, personal and work. And then from a Microsoft 365 perspective, you can pretty much get Copilot with any licensing level with Microsoft 365. Early on, it used to be limited to a couple different licenses, but now they've just kind of opened it up to everything. Couple things I'll mention here. When Microsoft talks about security around Copilot and being able to secure your data and all those things, when it comes to like data loss prevention, encryption, and those types of tools, the licenses that you really need to get to take full advantage of those services are Business Premium, which is designed for businesses less than 300 employees, or if you're an enterprise more than 300 employees, you're going to get the Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 license. And there's also a little add-on license that you can get with the E3 called E5 Security. And if you ever want to learn about some of those add-on licenses, let us know. But those are kind of the key licenses in the stack that you would need to get some of the advanced security features and some of the stuff that Mark is going to be showing you here towards the end of the presentation. The Business Premium one is kind of a go-to for small businesses, though, because all the features that it includes from a security perspective. Accessing Copilot, how do you get access to it? Well, obviously you can get access to it on your mobile phone. Everyone carries their phone around, so there's a little app you can download on your phone. Your Windows desktop has it built in. If you're familiar with Cortana that Microsoft got rid of, now it's replaced with Copilot. And if you're running the developer build of or insider preview build of Windows 11 on your desktop, you get access to some of the new features. I just updated just last night and got some of the new interactions with Copilot on the desktop has changed since last night. There's a sidebar within your browser. There's desktop applications, so built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, so on, Teams, Outlook. It's all built into the applications and it's tuned for those applications, and I'll talk about that. And then copilot.microsoft.com. That is more like the real kind of chat GPT type of an experience, and I'll show it to you here in a little bit of how that works, and I'll show you the difference between work and web. And then let's see, Copilot under the hood. So let's talk about search just real quick in general. Search as we know it is changing, and the evolution of search has really started from just general keyword search, where you've typed in a word and you're looking for a specific pattern and you get a response for that particular pattern. As search has evolved over time, and this is not just search on the web, but this is also search on your desktop, we've got natural language search that has come into play. And natural language search takes into consideration context, really kind of what are you trying to, it's trying to interpret the search intent of it. And then you get into generative AI search, and generative AI search is just that. It's can generate content. It's just not saying, here are the websites to go to based on what we think you're saying or asking, but here's generative content. I can create stuff, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a little bit. One thing I will note, and Microsoft announced this last month, is that, and this is the little blurb I took out, this is from May 16th. This is from the administration announcements that you get in the Message Center and the Microsoft 365 Admin Console. Microsoft is removing natural language search from Microsoft 365. Why, right? Why would they do that? Well, think about that evolution, right? If we think about this evolution of going up to Gen AI, what Microsoft is doing is they're creating what they call the semantic index, and I'll talk about that in a second, within your Microsoft 365 tenant. And to get to this next generation of search, Microsoft is pulling out the natural language search engine and replacing it with this new search engine. And that search engine is based off the semantic index. A semantic index in general, and this is used by language models, it basically takes common terms and words and brings them into context, so that things that are related to each other. And like in this example here on the screen, it has crab, steak, lobster, meat. You can say recipe or barbecue or something like that. Those are kind of related things, right? Context. And in your Microsoft 365 tenant, early on with Copilot, when you added a Copilot license, Microsoft would begin the process of building your semantic index within your tenant. And what that would do is it would look at the content within your Microsoft 365 tenant. We call it the graph. And it's basically anything that you've uploaded into your Microsoft environment. That includes emails and chats and files and whatever. And it builds this index based off all that data within your tenant. It's not training their language models on your data. It is just indexing that data. So it's going through and building essentially a search engine, but a smart search engine for your data data source. And the one key little point here is that, like I said, they did it when you added a license, but Microsoft is now pulling out the natural language model and putting in a semantic index, not just on companies that have a Copilot license. It'll be across the board for everybody, because that search engine is changing. So we're going to see search dramatically change over the next year or so, and evolve into Gen AI search. And Microsoft has already started that process in the background of building these semantic indexes within your tenant. There used to even be a little indicator in the admin console that the index was being built. They've pulled that out. So they're just starting to build them now, and that's this news announcement right here is kind of the indicator of that. So semantic search is different, and I'm going to give you a live demo of that, and we'll obviously provide you a copy of this deck so you can have it. But it will correct spelling mistakes. It's going to give you more relevant information. It's going to give you, because the engine behind it is more robust, and it also better understands the questions that you're asking for. The way Copilot works, and I'm not going to go through all the details of this is kind of a little scary for some people, is you start with the application, the interface, and where you're going to prompt Copilot or ask the question. And that could be in a web browser, copilot.microsoft.com. That could be in your desktop applications, that can be in Windows, mobile apps, all those things that I mentioned earlier. And then what it does is it goes over to the Copilot engine. Your prompt, your question goes over to the Copilot engine. And I'm not going to go into the details here, but essentially it gets grounded, which means it tries to figure out what you're asking, looks at your data set within the graph. If it can't find it there, it's actually going to go out to the live internet and pull context out of there. ChatGPT just released 4.0 or 4 Omni, which now has that capability. Microsoft had it prior to that. And 4 Omni will be built into Copilot soon. It's already in the Azure AI side. It was released almost immediately, but now it's going to be built into Copilot for Microsoft 365. We don't know when yet, but we know it's coming because it's already in the Azure AI engine. So it does this processing, throws it over to the language model, which is Microsoft's own language model. They're using ChatGPT or OpenAI technology with their $13 billion investment in OpenAI. And so they're using the same technology, but they build their own language model. And then that language model can look at your Microsoft 365 data. It can look at the live web content and then generate a response back to you. And off you go. And we'll show you how that actually works. So adoption, how do businesses adopt Copilot? Well, you start from the bottom up. This is a brand new skill. You got to start with the individual. And this is something we all have to learn. And the prompt side of this is where it really gets, is that skill. And I'll show you what that means here in a second. But first, you got to understand it, right? What is this? How does this work? And in the sense of the personal use, because we each have our own use cases. We each have the way we work every single day and the applications that we interact with and the people that we interact with. So first, you have to understand it as an individual. And then once you understand it as an individual, then you can start to, wrap your head around, well, boy, I could use this for here and here and here as it relates to your department or your area within your organization. And then the organization begins to see the value. So early on, it may be very difficult to quantify. It's like, why do I want to spend $30 a month for my employees to do this? It can be challenging to quantify. But once employees start to use it and they start to learn it, and then you go, hey, can we take Copilot away from you? And they're like, no, I use it every day. They see that value, We see it, we saw it almost immediately. We got Copilot licenses for our entire org right out of the gate, so we could start learning it as individuals. And we started using it in meetings and the meeting recaps and the discussions. And people like myself or Mark who get triple booked, we stopped declining meetings and we put ourselves as tentative. And now in the new Outlook, they changed tentative to follow. So now, even though I couldn't attend the meeting, I can go back and get a full recap of it, which is fantastic. So learn it individually up to the department, and then from there, Microsoft gives you full pathways for both user enablement and for the business side of it, and then the technical aspects of it. There's kits and workbooks and training and all kinds of things that Microsoft has provided. And they even give personas around executives and sales and marketing, and they give tons of examples on how to do this. There's no lack of information on how to learn with Microsoft 365. So the art of the prompt, which is essentially the questions that how you ask Copilot. There's the right way and there's the wrong way, or at least I won't say, maybe wrong is a little bit strong, but when it comes to prompting, if you want to get good results, you have to learn how to create good prompts. And good prompts are asking a question of the system, and you got to treat the system like a personal assistant, like you're engaging a person. The more depth, the broader the question, the more detail that you provide of what you're looking for, the better the response is going to be, right? It's not like a couple of guys saying, hey, how's your day going? They go, fine, right? You want a little bit more, right? You want a little bit more depth as it relates to the prompt. And there's a particular structure that from a prompting perspective. You want to obviously state your goal. What's the context of the prompt? What am I really trying to get at here? Is there any sources that I want to reference here as gets? And then what do I expect to get out? So this is the art of the prompt. These are kind of the 4 categories of a prompt you need to really focus on and have as part of your prompting questions when it goes into the system. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there's effective versus less effective. The more detailed, the better. The people who tend to benefit the most from a generative AI system are people who manage people, because they know how to ask questions. They know how to form questions and shape things to get a result that they're looking for. And that's a skill that you've learned over time. And you can take that skill and you can bring it directly into the Gen AI system. Copilot Lab, and I'll show you this in here in a little bit. This is the training resource for Microsoft. And you'll notice that we've got links here down at the bottom, and we have a slide, one slide with a whole bunch of reference links we'll share at the end, and you can have the deck for that. And then examples, where do you start? Here's kind of like the top things to try first when it comes to Copilot. And then demos. Let's do some demos here. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to go from this screen to this screen, and I'm going to do some couple of little live demos for you and give you some examples of how Copilot works. So now let me share screen 1 with you, and I'll slide this over here and slide this over here. So this is Copilot Lab I mentioned earlier, just a minute ago. This is where you're going to go and learn about Copilot. They give lots of short videos. Every single Microsoft application is here that has Copilot integrated into it, whether it be Loop or Teams or OneNote or PowerPoint or just the Copilot system itself. They give you some prompts to start with, and they give you learning about prompts, the goal, context, source, expectations piece. They have a whole toolkit. And if you keep scrolling down, there's adoption frameworks. So if I were to take a look at this one, here's the full adoption framework. Here's your success kit. They give you PowerPoint presentations. They give you pre-built emails to send out to your employees. They give you everything you could possibly imagine and more to implement Copilot within your organization. And we can come alongside of you and help along with this process and consolidate it and get you going, a little bit quicker. And that's part of why we're having this presentation today. So let's talk about search. So this is Google Engine. Why am I on Google? Because I want to show you how search is evolving. I'm going to take I'm copying and pasting because I'm terrible with spelling and grammar. So this is Google, and I'm going to show you a search response from Google. Okay. There is no generative AI representation here. This is traditional search, right? Here's what's new in Copilot for April 24. Google's a fantastic search engine. I use it every day, but you'll notice it's a little bit simple and as it relates to the response. But if I go over to Microsoft's Bing search and I do the exact same thing, okay, notice the response. You get the traditional search response on the left, but what's happening on the right? I'm getting the Copilot generative AI response. And this is what you're going to start to see in every search engine. Search engines are going to start transitioning to this. They're trying to catch up with OpenAI. Google's doing a pretty good job of getting there, but we're going to start to see this type of generative AI response. Now let's jump over to this site. This is copilot.microsoft.com. I am logged in with a profile. I go to settings here. I've got a profile, personal and work, and I've got my Covenant Tech and Covenant Global. I'm going to switch to my Covenant Tech profile here real quick. And then we'll close that out and we'll go back here. So actually, let's do that on global. But that's how you have to add your work profile into your Edge browser is my point. That feature is built into Edge. You're not going to get that with Google or Firefox or Safari. You have to do that with Edge. And when you do that, you're going to get this work web toggle. This site will work. It's just the profiles piece is built in. So the work web toggle flips you between web search, which is like we were searching at bing.com, but now it's giving me access to the chat GPT engines. I'm getting the creative, precise, and I'm getting access to the 4 engines. Again, the Omni engine is going to be coming here. When you're on the web toggle, you have individual privacy, meaning your work cannot see any history of you searching and using Copilot here, right? This is like just going to bing.com or any other search engine. You can ask the system open questions. There's no history that is stored in here. And Microsoft has all their copyright protection stuff built into this. Microsoft does protect you on the work side with copyright protection. So there's a whole bunch of reading you can do about that if you want to. So this is again, the ChatGPT type of experience where I can add images, add files, dictate into it and do normal response. When I flip over to the work side of it, now what I've done is I've triggered the system to say, hey, you now have access to the Graph API. You now have access to the content within my Microsoft 365 tenant. And so when I ask questions here, it is going to not only look at what's in my tenant, but it's also going to complement that with live web data. So let's take a common search here, or a typical search. I'm just going to do something simple here. For Microsoft's resources, create a detailed list of this month's new Copilot features related to Microsoft Teams. Now, I'm asking it to create a list. So it's going out, understanding the context of the question, going out to the live web, and I'm on the work side, right? This is not content that's in my tenant, and it's going out and creating this result, this response, based on the question I asked it. And I have the ability to copy and paste in here. And it also provides me with all the references. Some of it came out of this presentation, actually. And then our Fortify process and some meeting notes that we had. So there's some content that came out internally, but there's also content that came out of live web data. So you can get a blend of things as it relates to it. I'll give you another example here, and we'll just do this within here. And I'm going to say new prompt or new topic. So I'm going to just tell the system, hey, I don't want you to think about what I just asked you, because these questions can build on each other, just like engaging in conversation. You can tell the system to try harder if you don't like the response. So you can build on these conversations. So I'm going to paste this one in and see, ask me for more detail. What is the new topic? So I'm going to say draft a training manual for me, right? Not something I'm going to have necessarily within my Microsoft 365 tenant, but it's going to go to the live web and do that. So it's drafting a training manual for me, and it's putting in bullets. It's got highlighting and all that type of stuff. So I'll wait for it to finish. And there we go. And then I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to open up Word, and I'm going to paste it. Okay. So it brings, you can see it mostly keeps the content in here, right? But I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to engage Copilot within Microsoft Word now and do the exact same thing. Okay, but watch the difference. Let's go grab that prompt. Sorry, copy that and generate. So doing the exact same thing as I did in the browser, but now I'm doing it within Word. And you'll notice the formatting, right? It's using headings. It's properly formatting the paragraphs. It's giving me all the bullets, and so on and so forth. Okay. The other place you can engage Copilot is up here, the sidebar. Whether you're in Word or PowerPoint or Excel or some of the other ones, you're going to have several ways that you can engage with Copilot and ask questions. I also will mention here real quick, and Mark will talk about this, the sensitivity labels. So if I were getting content created from internal content with my organization that had a sensitivity label that was employees only, encrypted, protected, which means that it can't leave the organization, because this document was created from that content and it had a sensitivity label on it, it's going to apply that same sensitivity label to the newly generated content. Also, it honors the security within your system, and it will only provide you feedback for the data that you have access to. So there's that one. Let's go over and we'll do another one here, and I'll say stop generating, and we'll trash it. I'm going to do another one here. And this one is based on the files I have access in Teams, summarize the goals of CMMC. So if you're not familiar with CMMC, that's the Department of Defense thing for contractors that have to meet certain security requirements. It's all coming down hard, and we got a whole program around that and help businesses get through it. Or if you're familiar with the NIST frameworks, 800-171, 320 control points, we help with all those types of things. And this is, I just asked it to say, hey, based on what the files I have access to, what I have access to in Teams, generate this content, right? And it's giving me goals and so on and so forth. And I can say, I'll let it finish here. Once it's done generating, I'll say, I like that, and we'll copy that and we'll paste that over into here. And there we go. So it can generate the content over in the sidebar, and it can also generate the content within the body of the presentation. So I'll do one more, and then I'll be done with my demos here. I'm going to jump over to PowerPoint. I'm going to do a very similar type of question, and I'm going to ask Copilot. Click on Copilot over here, and I'm going to say, based on the files I have access into in Teams, create a presentation about the goals of CMMC regulation, both technical and non-technical. Highlight the top 10 technical requirements. Make it easy for a non-technical business owner to understand. So I'm kind of saying, hey, what's the tone I want to have within what we're doing here? And it's going to go and generate this presentation. Now, tone is an important thing to understand. Remember the semantic index for your graph? Well, over time, Copilot, based on your emails and chats, will understand your individual tone. Kind of scary, I know, but it will actually learn it. So here, it just generated this whole presentation on CMMC based on the content that I have access to. Gives you an overview of the standards, technical requirements, talks about some of the access controls, accounting on ability, awareness and training. So it created this whole deck for me, right? It gives me a place to start. Imagine how much time that saved me just doing that one thing, right? With content that I already had access to. It could have gone out to the public internet if I told it to and generated that content, but it generated it in real time. Is that worth 30 bucks? Most likely, yeah. How long would that have taken me to generate on my own? Probably several hours. And my time isn't necessarily inexpensive, so that's well worth it to give me a kickstart to generate content. Obviously, it's generated AI, and you're going to have to go through and validate that, hey, yes, this is accurate. But at the same time, it's good, solid content to at least begin with. So I'll stop there. I'm gonna hand the reins over to Mark, and Mark is gonna pull up the presentation deck again, and he's going to talk about administrative reporting and some of these things about sensitivity labels, data loss prevention, and go a little bit more detail for you. So I'll go off camera, and Mark, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Mike. Just give me a sec here so I can pull it up. All right, should be loading here. There we go. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. Yeah, so one comment I want to make just about what Mike was talking about in the PowerPoint presentation. I did some documentation of a tenant Fortify process that we were doing. Fortify, again, is a product of ours that we go and secure the tenant. I had to do a presentation, like a cross-train with the IT team. So I went to the PowerPoint and I said, hey, go and create me a presentation deck, a training deck, using this Word document. So I created some documentation of that and with screenshots and just added some text to it. And I said, please go out to the internet and provide anything that would add to this presentation, include that into it with links out to Microsoft content. It created like this 50-page presentation, like training presentation I could sit down and actually provide it to the IT team. I mean, that would have taken me probably about 5-6 hours, and it did it like in 5 minutes. It wasn't even that, it was like minutes. It was just pretty amazing. So what I'm going to be covering is just really the administration reporting, the security of Copilot, and there's some additional feature sets that you can use to really make sure that you want to secure Copilot, the prompting, and just the content. Mike kind of mentioned parts of that already and showed that with like within the Word document about sensitivity labels. So I'll just cover that again too. So first part of it is the administration reporting. Copilot in the admin console. Once you get a license added, this is going to pop up. So you go to the 365 Admin Center, and then you click on the Copilot. This is really like the first page that you want to visit. It is really showing you how Copilot is configured for your organization today, what the available licenses you have. It also gives you, it's a great place to go for just understanding the assignment of licenses. There's a message center, so staying current with Copilot. They're constantly making changes. So on the right side, you can see a message center, things pop up there. Of course, Mike was doing prompts with Copilot to provide that. You could do that also, but this is a great place to go and just have eyes on what's the latest things, what are the latest changes coming. Also, it provides a resource center, so quick links out to Microsoft content, and this is really for more administrators of Copilot. So like the Copilot Lab, the documentation for IT admins, a lot of those same links we do provide further on. We have a whole list of links to a lot of that content, but this is a great place to start with. Moving on now to the Copilot and the admin console, the configuration. So this is Microsoft has really just created a single place where it links out to all the different configurations you can do for Copilot. So this is, again, we were talking about sensitivity labels. We're talking, there's also data loss prevention. There's also communication compliance policies you can do to really help manage Copilot, have eyes on what your users are doing and how they're using Copilot. So this is just a place where it kind of links out to all the other admin sites where you can go do configurations. That's pretty much what I want to cover there. Copilot readiness and usage. So once you actually start assigning licenses and you're handing those out, you want to know how Copilot's being adopted. What are users doing? You don't want to, I mean, it's $30 a license. So what are the activities? Are they actually using it? And if they're not, show me where they're not using it at. And then that way you can actually now start prompting, send out communications to those individuals. So this readiness and usage, it just provides you that visibility. It provides the visibility of how many licenses you have, what's remaining to be assigned, what users actually meet the requirements to have Copilot. So we kind of covered those already about certain license types, which it seems like it's just expanding to the point where it's all license types. But there's other things that you have to actually make sure too. They have to be on the current channel or monthly enterprise channel for updates. They have to be on that. So it shows you that, and then you know who you can assign those licenses to. The other thing is really the 365 apps and with Office, Word, Teams, PowerPoint, those type of tool sets. What are people using within an organization? And because that kind of tells you what benefit you're going to get from Copilot. So down below, you can see where it says enable active users for Microsoft 365 apps. This is just kind of showing you what the users are actually using and the most and the least type of thing. And so that it just gives you an idea of where you're going to see more of the benefit of Copilot in an organization just based off use today. So Copilot user engagement, this screen is going to really provide more deep level of like the reporting of how our users are using it within the app itself. So this is like, are they actually using prompts? So this is not just if like they're in Word and they go and click on the Copilot, if they don't interact with it, it's not going to show up here. They have to actually interact and be prompting with it. And that could be also the built-in predefined prompts that Microsoft has. And if they click on that, it will then show up here. So you'll be able to see down to the specific apps and who's actually using prompts. The other benefit of this page too is really once you actually identify if like, hey, Teams is really not being used that widely, I want to send out a message to the organization or to a subset of users. From here, you can actually do that. Microsoft provides a quick way to create an organizational message. You can kind of see on the left, the right side, where it kind of, it has the message, so you can kind of focus what the communication you want to do. So again, besides all the onboarding documentation and the readiness kits that they provide, this is another way as you've already deployed just to keep up on that usage and of Copilot and just making sure, just kind of like edging and pushing people, to actually use it more, and then how to go use it, right? And then providing links to just learn more about it, because it could just be a learning process. Prompting is a new thing. People need to kind of learn how to do that. So Defender for Cloud Apps, part of this is now getting more into the security side of Copilot, having more eyes and visibility of what's being used. So Defender for Cloud Apps is a great tool set to understand what people, other AI tool sets that people are using within your organization. So what we typically call like shadow IT, anyone go spin up a free SaaS account and start using that. So who's using OpenAI ChatGPT today? Who's using the Google AI type product itself? So if people are using Microsoft Defender today within their environment and they have it enabled and turned on, it is already uploading those logs up to the cloud, up to Microsoft. So it's gathering all that information of what's being accessed, what's being used, and then it gives you visibility to the cloud apps. So Microsoft tracks today over 31,000 and growing every day cloud apps. They also categorize those SaaS applications into 42 categories. And one of them is generative AI. So you can see that there. So in generative AI alone, in that category, there's over 440 different SaaS applications, which I don't think a lot of people understand like how many are out there and how fast it's growing. So this gives you the capability to actually see that, who's using those, right? And then you can actually start controlling those apps. If you want to start shutting that down, you can do that. So it's a great tool set and capability. One of the things that we do recommend, you may be using a third-party EDR, XDR solution today. We run into that all the time with other clients. And what we always recommend is turn on Defender. If you're licensed for it, turn it on, because you're going to get all this information and visibility automatically. Defender plays very well with other products and other solutions. We have not ran into like issues where it starts competing with the other products itself. So we definitely highly recommend that, so you can get those logs and telemetry data collection. All right, so to dive more into Copilot data security, one of the things that we want to just really cover is just that the point that today you can actually use sensitivity labels, DLP prevention policies to control that of really sharing externally and like oversharing of content to outside and making sure that's locked down. You know, all the prompts, all the answers discarded at the end of the session. Microsoft doesn't use your prompt, your data to train their AI models. That is a key thing and differentiator. If you're using OpenAI and you have someone that has a personal account and they're copying company data into that, it's going to be used. It's going to be trained. They're using that stuff. So Microsoft gives that added protection of your content. Another reason of why to go and license it through Microsoft and start restricting, you know, other AI platforms, because you want to really protect your data. So once you actually sign in, you know, with your work account, you're licensed. You saw that in the Copilot page. I don't know, on the right side, there was a little security badge. It's secure then at that point, and it's all encrypted, you know, in the communications. So all your prompting, all that type of stuff is encrypted in itself. So prompt history, e-discovery. The prompting in itself, so when you're on the copilot.microsoft.com and you're on the web, none of that content, and when you're actually prompting, it's going to the web, it doesn't have access to their internal data, so your graph environment, that prompt and that chat history won't be stored. You won't be able to search on that as a company. Once people actually swap over to the work side, that's when they have access to the graph, which, as you saw through the prompting that Mike was showing. At that time, it is storing those prompts. You can, as a company, start setting up e-discovery. You can define data retention policies around that too. And then part of the e-discovery, you can do keyword searching for like what people are using within that prompt. So, you know, one of the things, it's like if you're a healthcare environment and you want to see if people are prompting, you know, with PII type stuff, you can do that. And then if it's finding things, you can have different retention levels for that, and you can actually destroy those prompts through e-discovery. So it's a way just to keep track, have additional protection on that. So this is really kind of covering the search queries. We wanted to kind of talk about really Bing, right? So Bing, Microsoft's automatically bringing that in. That's going to be free. So if you go to bing.com today, you have that search capabilities of using like Copilot, generative AI type prompts. You can disable this web search. So when, as a company, when you go to the copilot.microsoft.com, like an employee does, that web, you can actually disable that. The thing is that what we kind of say is like, well, if you go do that already, they can just go to bing.com, right, and start using that. So just kind of think about that. You know, if you're trying to restrict that and remove that web, is it really causing, are you really protecting your environment when they can just go to bing.com, right, and start using that? Or eventually Google is going to be building that in and they're using that browser. There's a benefit of really just training users here of having both, and for them to understand that and the difference between those two. So with the e-discovery, again, with the work, you know, all Copilot activity is being tracked, being monitored. You can actually create case managements, searches for that, and you can actually put legal holds on that data too in itself. If you want to actually understand within your SharePoint reports, you can actually, like, how data is being shared today and the sharing links, and, you know, if people are actually sharing with anonymous links out within your company, you can actually use SharePoint reports here and to get more visibility of those sharing, like how the data is being shared out today. You can actually look at and pull some reporting of sensitivity labels on your data sets. The one thing I want to say with this is Microsoft, they provide this capability. It doesn't really get rich in detail. We have found out that other third-party products work a lot better, give you way more visibility and control capabilities. And we can definitely talk more about that, if you're interested in kind of explaining that. But it's, to the standpoint of really understand the risk associated with your data sets, within SharePoint, within Teams, potential exposure to even internal people or to external people based off of the type of sensitivity labels and the classification of that data and what it's starting to see. So it's seeing a credit card information or health information within a document, but yet doesn't have a right sensitivity label. Those things you want to know about. So the third-party tools kind of dig into that a lot better and really bubble that up for visibility. Restricted SharePoint search. So Microsoft has come out with a free feature where if you want to get Copilot into your environment, get people to start using Copilot, like, hey, within creating Word documents, creating policies, like those type of things, recaps of meetings. The other feature I really like to have, like those long email threads that you within Outlook, you can go and quickly just say, hey, just recap this for me. And you can actually prompt and ask for, hey, provide me the top 3 critical things out of this. So you don't have to dig through all those emails that's within those series. If you want to actually, and if you're worried about SharePoint itself and people having access, and you can actually restrict that. So they gave you the capability of 100 sites that you can actually disable. And then Copilot can't access it. It won't, any content that's stored in those sites, it won't be used within those prompts. The one caveat, though, that you have to be aware of if you actually use this is that it is excluded now from eDiscovery, those sites themselves. So this is something where I kind of urge you, if you have a legal team, external house counsel, like, make sure that's appropriate, because that they may not want that. They may need to have that capability depending on the environment that you're in. Right. So again, just a kind of overview to help protect your organized information with Copilot is control sharing. This is, again, the DLP sensitivity labels, the SharePoint reporting that I was kind of showing. That's their advanced management. It is additional license that you have to get. If you're running E5, you do have those. You have access to that, so you have that capability. Classifying your data and you're protecting that information, and really managing devices. So it's more of a holistic view of just making sure who has access to your data, what devices are they using to access that data. So you want to kind of look at your environment and make sure that you're kind of protecting that. You don't want personal devices to be connecting in your environment and syncing that down. And so all that kind of is part of just really securing Copilot in your data. The monitoring the activity, again, this is really the eDiscovery. You can do like compliance policies, communication compliance policies if you're licensed for that. And then again, Microsoft Defender for Identity is really giving you that visibility, the eyes on what's happening, what apps they're using, and just be able to lock that down. One of the things I do want to talk about was, and just, besides the sensitivity labels and the DLP, data loss prevention policies you can do just to restrict the external sharing, oversharing, I like to say, is that what Mike mentioned, and you saw it in some of those other slides, is that if people don't have access to the data today, like, it won't be used within the Copilot prompts. So it honors that. So a lot of questions and concerns I get from other customers and just talking with external people is that, they're worried that it's just going to give them access to everything. And it's like, no, It won't be able to gain access to other people's OneDrive or other people's email, right? If they don't have access to SharePoint site today, it won't be able to use that. It won't be able to have use that content for their response, the prompt. Sensitivity, information types, and labels. One of the things that, just to cover here is that you can actually turn this on. It's a capability to really classify your data in your documents. So if it's like financial ABA routing information, if it has that type of content, you want to be able to classify that data. So anytime you actually upload a document to the environment through OneDrive, SharePoint, email, that type of thing, it's automatically going to be classified. It's going to be scanned, and then it's going to determine what content it has in there is based off what you have configured. So by default, Microsoft actually already does this with like PCI content, so credit card information. That's usually one policy they have. And so any document that it starts seeing credit card information, it will classify that as that. You can do HIPAA, healthcare, PII. You can set those in there too. So it's a great way to understand using classifying your data, and then you can actually enhance it with sensitivity labels and then defining a specific label based off the content it has. So what Mike kind of showed you is that when you're working to create a new Word document, you can actually create the sensitivity label, click on that, and then you can define it yourself, right? And select that label. This is going to be more automated based off the content type. So it's just that added protection. And then based off the label, now Copilot, when you're creating content, as Mike mentioned, whatever content it's pulling from, because it could be 4 different documents that's internal. If one of those documents is sets for encryption, internal only, that is what that document's going to be automatically set. It adopts that. Data loss prevention. Now, this is where this tool set you can start using to really protect oversharing of content. You can actually create policies to really focus on certain sensitivity labels. You can say, hey, internal only, you don't want that to ever be sent out. You don't want any content that's attached to an email or a OneDrive share or a SharePoint share external to be blocked. So data loss prevention provides that. You can actually set up policies and rules to really block that. If you have a certain data type, sensitivity type also tied to certain data, and you want it like an extra set of eyes on it, you can allow people to be able to send it through an email, but it's going to be reviewed by legal, let's say, and they have to approve it, and once they approve it, it gets sent out. So there's just controls that you can actually have with data loss prevention here. All right, so we have another poll, and I think that's going to get posted here soon. And if you could just respond to that poll. And then at this point, Mike, this is where I'm turning it back over to you.
Why don't you go to the next slide, so you get control there.
Right here.
So here's all your references. I know we're ran a little bit long, everyone, but this is the gem at the end of it all for you. Pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, as it were. And so this is all the different links. We will send these out to you if you want them. In the slide deck, Melissa and Ruth will help get all that. But here's all the links, a lot of links that we talked about. So this will come out to you. And then next slide.